Oscar, Grandpa here, and Moosey, of course. Lots of love from Moosey. Hello, say hello to Oscar, Moosey. Hello, 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 hello. Moosey's been pretty good, been helping look after me and all that sort of stuff, and Granny as well, and Granny sends her love, and so does Auntie Anna. And hope that all you're well and love the way you went at the weekend. It was such a great place with lots of play and those bunny rabbits. Oh, wow. I bet you love cuddling them. So it's lots of love to Mummy and Daddy and your little sister Annabelle. And we'll read a little bit more from How to Train Your Dragon. We're getting on towards the not far from the end of the book now, so I think there's going to be some excitement. If you remember, they were tickling the Green Death's nostrils, and his eyes stopped streaming, and suddenly he could see the maddening Fireworm pinpoint clear. And it was lucky for Fireworm that at that very moment the Purple Death came crashing round the corner and struck the Green Death heavily in the stomach. His grip loosened on Fireworm for a second, and she flew off, panting with relief. Well, that was a lucky break. The Green Death sat down heavily in the sea and fought for breath. The Purple Death did much the same. Chapter 15. The Battle at Death's Head Headland. Whoa, that sounds exciting. While Hiccup and his team had been enraging the Green Death, Thuggery and his team had been infuriating the Purple Death. The two monsters ran smack into one another as they met at the corner of Death's Head Headland. Gosh, that must have been something. One of Fireworm's wings was broken in two places from her experience in the Green Death's grip, but she bravely flew back and made her final speech into his ear as he sat gasping for air in the shadows. Here he is, shouted Fireworm, my master, the Purple Horror, who will tear you limb from limb and spit out your toenails. Ooh, that sounds horrible. And Fireworm flew away lopsidedly as fast as she could, with one wing trailing behind her. The Green Death was having a bad day. Ordinarily, a sea dragonus giganticus maximus would not dream of attacking another animal of the same breed. They avoid fighting each other because they know they are so heavily armed that the battle risks ending in death for both of them. Ooh. However, the Green Death had been attacked and jeered at by minuscule creatures who had inflamed and outraged his vanity. This creature, who seemed to think he was tougher than the Green Death himself, had struck him heavily in the chest. The Green Death wasn't thinking too hard. He leapt at the Purple Death with his talons outstretched, breathing great bursts of fire, which lit up the landscape all around like lightning. The ground and the sea shook in great earthquakes as the two gigantic monsters lunged crazily at each other, swearing the most unrepeatable oaths in Dragonese. The Green Death's foot completely destroyed Wrecker's Reef with one blow. Imagine, Oscar, imagine that. The Purple Death's wings caused great landslides to come tumbling down from the headland cliffs. Now their job was done, the Viking boys were running away as fast as they could, their eyes popping with terror in case one of the dragons survived the fight. Every now and then they looked back to see how the battle was going. With ghastly, eerie cries, the dragons slashed and bit and tore pieces off one another. Ooh! The sea dragon is the most well-defended creature that has ever lived on this planet. Its skin is over 3 feet thick in places, and so encrusted with shells and barnacles that it almost has the effect of armour. It is also the most well-armed creature that has ever lived on this planet, and its razor-sharp claws and teeth can rip open its own iron crust as if it were made out of paper. Now both dragons had terrible wounds, and their green lifeblood was pouring out of them. The Green Death gripped the Purple Death around the neck with a deadly throat choker grip. The Purple Death hugged the Green Death around the chest with a deadly breath quencher hug. Ooh, that sounds horrible. Neither would let go, and the grip of a dragon is a terrible thing. They reminded Hiccup of a picture on one of his father's shields of two dragons forming a perfect circle as they ate one another. Ugh. Each with a tail in their mouth. Ooh, that's horrible. The dragons thrashed around wildly in the surf, gagging and choking with their eyes popping, their tails causing such tidal waves that the boys were soaked, even though they were scrambling away from the headland as fast as they could. Finally, with some last heaving shudders and grim gurgles, both mighty beasts lay still in the water. There was silence. The boys stopped running. They stood gasping for breath, watching the motionless beasts with dread. The boys' dragons, which were flying somewhere ahead of the boys, also turned and hung still in the air. The terrible creatures didn't move. Oh, what do you think's happened, Oscar? The boys waited 2 long minutes as waves lapped gently over the great motionless bodies. They're dead, said Thuggery at last. The boys started laughing, rather hysterically, now that the terror was over. Well done, Hiccup, Thuggery slapped Hiccup on the back. But Hiccup was looking worried. He was squinting his eyes and straining to hear something. I can't hear anything, said Hiccup anxiously. You can't hear anything because they're dead, said Thuggery joyfully. 3 cheers for Hiccup. Halfway through the boys' cheering, Fireworm let out a terrible noise. Dessert! Desert, she shrieked. Desert, 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 desert. The head of the corpse of the Green Death was slowly lifting up and turning in their direction. Oh, said Hiccup. There's Hiccup saying, uh-oh. Ooh, what's going to happen next? Put his hands in front of his eyes. The fiendishly clever plan goes wrong. Chapter 16. Hiccup had been listening for the Green Death's death song, but he wasn't singing it yet. The Green Death was dying, but he wasn't dead yet. What he was very, very angry indeed. Out of his bleeding mouth he hissed weakly, "Where is he?" And then he heaved himself onto his feet and hissed a little more stronger. "Where is he? Where is the little supper? I knew I recognized him. He was my doom, no wonder. The little supper has made a supper of me, the Green Death himself." As the dragon spoke, he was inching forwards very slowly and painfully, his eyes fixed on the cliff top, where he could see little human beings beginning to run inland again. The dragon threw back his head and screamed, a blood-chilling scream of pure horrid revenge, dark and torturous. "I'll supper him before I go, I will," said the dragon, and he leapt forward. "Run!" shouted Hiccup, but everybody was already running as fast as they could. In the distance, Hiccup could see 400 warriors from the tribes of Hooligan and Meathead coming towards them from the highest point. They must have wondered at the boys' absence and come out to find them. But they won't get here in time, thought Hiccup, and even if they do, what can they do? Just then, the dragon landed with a crash on the cliff top, and suddenly the sun was blotted out. 20 boys ran towards the shelter of the ferns. The dragon picked up the nearest one with one claw and turned him over. It was Dog's Breath. By the time the dragon had tossed him aside, muttering, "Not you," the other boys had disappeared into the bracken. The dragon was sick, but he laughed weakly. "You're not safe there, oh no, for though I can't see you to kill you, I can use my fire." The bracken caught fire with the dragon's first breath, and the boys ran out of it as fast as they could. Hiccup stayed in a little longer, because he knew the dragon was waiting for him. Oh dear. Finally the heat became unbearable, and he took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and ran out into the open. He had run hardly 100 metres before 2 of the dragon's talons closed around his middle, and he was lifted up. Way, way up, so the other boys looked like little specks beneath him. The dragon held Hiccup up in front of him. "We are both supper now, little supper," he said, and he tossed Hiccup high, high into the air. Look, there's Hiccup being tossed high, high in the air by the dragon with his terrible teeth. As Hiccup somersaulted for the second time, he thought to himself, now this really is the worst moment of my life. Don't blame him, do you? Then he was falling. He looked down. There was the dragon's mouth, wide open like a great black cavernous tunnel. He was going to fall into it. So what happens next? Chapter 17, In the Mouth of the Dragon. Hiccup fell into the dragon's mouth and its teeth snapped shut behind him like prison doors. He was falling through complete darkness, surrounded by a smell so awful it was suffocating. Can you imagine, Oscar? Ooh. He jerked to a sudden halt as the back of his shirt caught on something and held. Hiccup hung there in the darkness, swaying gently. By 1,000-to-1 chance, his shirt had caught on a spear still stuck in the dragon's throat since his Roman banquet. Hiccup's foot brushed against the wall of what he presumed was the dragon's throat. The dragon's digestive juices stung like acid, and he snatched his foot away. There he is, hanging on the spear. Poor chap. Above him, Hiccup could hear the dragon's great tongue sloshing and lunging about his mouth, trying to find Hiccup so that he could crunch him to death. He hadn't intended to swallow him whole. A disgusting river of green goo dripped down the puffy red insides of the dragon's throat. Just across from where Hiccup was hanging, green-yellow steam was puffing out of 2 small holes in the slimy wall. Every now and then a small explosion sent little flickers of flame shooting out of the holes. How interesting, thought Hiccup, was strangely calm because he couldn't quite believe that this was really happening. Those must be where the fire comes from. Viking biologists had wondered for years where the fire that dragons breathe came from. Some said the lungs, others the stomach. Hiccup was the first to discover the fire holes, which are too small to see with the naked eye in a normal-sized dragon. Way down below him, Hiccup could hear the distant rumbling of singing from the dragon's previous meal. A sea dragon as giganticus obviously takes a long time to digest, thought Hiccup. It was indeed still going strong. Humans can be bland, but if you have some salt to hand, a little bit of brine will make them taste divine. The spear was gradually bending over with Hiccup's weight. It was only a matter of time before it broke and he fell to join the breezy optimist in the stomach below. What was worse, the fumes and the heat and the smell were starting to confuse Hiccup, so that he no longer really cared. The terrible noise of the dragon's heart beating had entered into Hiccup's chest and forced his own heart to follow the same rhythm. A dragon has to live after all, he found himself thinking. And then he remembered the dragon's words to him as he stood on the cliff top. You'll find that you come round to my point of view once you're inside me. Oh no, thought Hiccup, the dragon's digestion, it's already working. I need to live, he repeated to himself over and over again, trying desperately to block out the dragon's thoughts. There was a horrible creaking noise as the stout Roman spear began to split in two. Look, there's Hiccup looking terrified. Oh dear, what happens next? Well, chapter 18, The Extraordinary Bravery of Toothless. And that would have been the end of Hiccup if it had not been for the extraordinary bravery of a certain Toothless Daydream. Toothless, if you remember, had refused to join in the battle at Death's Headland. He was intending to fly off somewhere down the coast a bit and lie low till all was safe again. But he stayed at the highest point for a while, terrorising birds and rabbits. He must have been having a lovely time doing this, for he did not hear the approach of Stoik and the entire tribes of Hooligan and Meathead until Stoik grabbed him around the neck. "Where is my son?" asked Stoik. Toothless shrugged his shoulders rudely. "Where is my son?" bawled Stoik with an awe-inspiring yell so loud that Toothless's ears trembled. Toothless pointed to the Death's Headland. "Show me," said Stoik grimly. Under Stoik's fierce eye, Toothless reluctantly flapped off towards the Death's Headland, followed by the two tribes. Right, so we'll leave it there today, Oscar, and we'll be off to read about the extraordinary bravery of Toothless next time. So it's lots of love from me and from Moosey, and from Granny and Auntie Anna and everybody, and lots of love to you and Mummy and Daddy and your little sister Annabelle. So take care, have fun, bye.